What were you thinking?
That was the thought running through my mind as I stepped off the plane in Galway. It wasn't that I'd randomly run off and taken the next flight out from the airport, and it wasn't that I didn't want to be in Ireland. It was realizing that I'd done something completely spontaneous for the first time in a long time, and now I was standing in a foreign country with 2 weeks' worth of clothing and no idea where I was going. I'd flown into Galway, which according to Wikipedia was a huge arts centre for Ireland. I could have flown into Dublin, but I wasn't looking for a city like we had in America. I wanted something more authentic, somewhere closer to the countryside and the sea. My Gaelic wouldn't hold up in Galway's Gaeltacht areas, but I hoped I wouldn't need to be fluent. I'd packed my Irish dictionary just in case.
What were you thinking?
My inner rational woman was asking.
I was thinking that I had a deadline to meet,
I snapped back in silence.
And to meet it, you left the country? Sounds like running to me. I needed a change of scenery. You're running.
Oh, shut up, I scolded myself aloud. Unfortunately, I did so just as I bumped into a man on a cell phone who was speaking in rapid Irish. Gamolesh Kale, I said as I swept by him, not even looking up in my embarrassment. I could feel him watching me. He probably wondered what this crazy American was doing. Not even an hour in the Emerald Isle, and I'd already made a fool of myself. This was going to be a long trip. I picked up a rental car at the airport to start the last leg of my journey. I'd made a reservation at a bed and breakfast in the countryside. The reviews were good, and it was away from the city, but close enough that I could take a break every now and then. I was looking forward to some peace and quiet. As I drove, I watched the landscapes change from city to suburb to countryside. It was so lush and green, and far away over the verdant waves of land you could see glimpses of dark blue sea. I could only hope that I'd get to visit the sea in my downtime.
No lollygagging. You've got to get work done.
I sighed and kept driving. Here I was daydreaming of taking breaks when I'd come here to work. I pulled up in front of an older 2-story house which looked homey and welcoming. In addition to a well-manicured front lawn, I could see what looked like a private garden in the back.
This just might be exactly what I need,
I thought to myself. I parked the car, grabbed my bags, and headed inside. The inside was as warm and inviting as the outside. The fireplace crackled with life, and the living room smelled of turf smoke, hints of fresh bread, and strong tea. Photos of people and of landscapes covered the walls, and what looked like a hand-knitted Afghan lay across the side of the couch. I would have time to look around later. At the moment, I just wanted to get into my room and settle down. I stepped up to the counter across the room and waited for my host to turn around. He had his ear to the phone and seemed to be taking a reservation, bending over a book of some kind. Arriving tomorrow? No problem. Okay, see you then. Slán. He hung up and turned around, and I was greeted with 2 of the greenest eyes I'd ever seen. They sparkled with mischievousness and a certain charisma, but what type of charisma I couldn't explain. He had a combed mop of dark brown hair, and a hint of stubble covered the lower half of his face, as if he hadn't shaved that morning or the previous day. In any case, he wore it well. And how can I help you? He asked, his voice a healthy masculine timbre. Not too deep, but not too light either. I have a reservation under the name Penelope Richards, I said, trying to maintain my composure while avoiding looking into those eyes. He flipped through a worn book, the one he'd been writing in a few moments ago. Ah, here you are, and you're staying with us for 2 weeks? I nodded. Well, what brings you to Ireland, Miss Richards? I'm a writer in search of inspiration and some solitude. It sounded a bit pretentious, but it was true. This time, he laughed. Is that right? Inspiration, eh? Well, I think you've come to the right part of the country. As for the solitude, we're a friendly bunch here, and you might not get the alone time you're expecting. But we'll do our best not to bother you. He put away the guest book and reached for a key. Room 5, up the stairs and to your left. It has a nice view, a desk, and it gets plenty of sunlight during the day. Breakfast is served at 7 a.m, and I advise you to come hungry. He paused, looking at me with merriment in those eyes. We've already cleared away dinner, but I'll be glad to make you a light snack and some tea if you like. While the idea of tea was a welcome thought, I was too tired to wait for the kettle to boil. Oh, that won't be necessary. I'm a little tired from traveling today. I understand. Well, my name is Connor. Just give a shout if you need anything. I bit back any flirtatious remarks. Thank you. He smiled. Ah, I was hoping you might say that in Gaelic, especially since you spoke it at the airport earlier. With that comment and a wink, he turned and walked away. This was definitely going to be a long trip. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this story. If you did, please click on the like button, and if you want to see more content from me, click on the subscribe button and then the bell icon to get notifications. If you'd like to read more of my stories, you can find those on the story blog on my website at wordsbyparker.com/blog. Thanks again for listening, and I hope you'll join me for another story.